Hey, Joseph and Sarah. I finished watching your video on M&As, right? So I started watching it, but I didn't get to finish the whole thing. So I got a few more comments about the things you said in the kind of the rest of the video that I had not watched at the beginning, right? So so Joseph, just want to correct one little thing here, okay? I mean, it's no big deal, but it's a big deal to me because I've been saying this for 30 years. So you said it was TM and then it's MT and it's now AI. Not quite correct. Actually, MT existed way before this. Actually, 1960s. Um, and the rule based. Everybody talks about rule based MT now, statistical and then MT, right? But there was one called example based MT. Example based MT. And you know what the sexy name of example based MT is? Translation of memory. It's just a sexy name. So the reason why translation memory is famous and understood because it's got a sexier name and all this MT stuff, right? So EBMT, just no one caught on to that one, right? I wrote a paper on this, Joseph, in 1998 at LREC. So, first paragraph explained all this. Um, so and then AI, forget AI. I don't talk about AI because AI is just like that's marketing hype, right? So I'm a software developer, right? So in natural language processing, I've been doing this for 30 years. I don't talk about AI because AI is like that's what you say to people that don't know what they're talking about, right? So, I just do technologies. How you do it is it's internal cooking, right? So how you make it happen is like you just make it happen, right? There are different ways to do it. So so it's called example based MT. I've made lots of posts in Pros about this, right? Pros.com. I'm MT post editing at the Pros, my alias, and I made lots of topics about this. You didn't know about it, no big deal. Okay. Um, a lot of people, a lot of translators say, "I know, but it's not quite that." Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Okay. I know what I'm talking about. Okay. I'm a researcher too, so I cover my rear end when I'm doing the historical stuff, right? Because I'm a historian too, right? So yeah, um, that's what it is, right? Um, so we got of uh, interesting thing you talked about at IMSD. You guys are doing auditing and processes, um, and then you're talking about convincing internal stakeholders and the management of new projects, new ideas, and new technologies, and existing technologies, and all those technology and vendor relationships, and the whole thing of like getting into being technology and vendor agnostic. You know what? I've been doing this for SAP for 14 years. This is exactly what I do. This is what I do full time. So uh everything you just mentioned there. So like the whole business and business objects and business intelligence and all the analytics and how you can tap into that because I back end databases all over the world. I mean, this is what we do, right? So and the whole auditing process is this is what I did. Actually got outstanding audit of the year at SAP Labs France for this one for all of SAP. They said, "How are you doing here? What are you doing?" Um, and so the whole thing of stakeholder engagement, stakeholder management, expectation management, auditing the processes, and like doing the whole all the acquisitions. Boy, I ran and co-led the entire R&D infrastructure alignment project for the big acquisitions. The small ones, those get bulldozed over, right? But the old big fish, you can't kill them, right? So I mean, you can't wipe them out because that's why they got bought because they're big and they're good. Um, so on the vendor relationships, um, I, I don't handle anything on the language part of it because that's all over in the language experience folks on the vendor management part. I don't do that. I just kind of handle all the rest of the stuff. Dealing with dealing with the technologies for and then dealing with technology and third party vendors for like the rest of the stuff, right? So the stuff that's core business. Because language is not core business. I mean, it is, but it's not. It's not. That's not what makes all the money, right? That's what allows you to globalize it, right? But that's what the first thing makes the money in the beginning. So I get to kind of bridge these things together. I have a lot of fun with this. Um, um, so some of the acquisitions you're talking about, TransPerfect. I kind of want to give a kind of some views on this. You said that, hey, Phil could come talk about it. I can tell you about it because I actually worked there. Um, and I did this video a couple of weeks about my M's and A's, and I talked about how TransPerfect's doing it right. And I was there when a lot of acquisitions. I've been studying the whole thing, and I actually sold a lot of these products, right? So I was one of the, I got to know these acquisitions really because I had to sell the products, right? So I knew them really, really well. Um, so the TransPerfect Life Sciences division has a few different kind of sub things, right? So actually, the Crimson, what you guys are saying that the life science had a product. Well, it's Crimson Medical Devices, okay? Crimson Medical Devices translation. What happened is that it was called Crimson Medical, right? Crimson Medical Devices translation, and they got acquired. And they do medical devices translation, and they actually have this. They got a patented back translation process. I actually studied this thing to death because I'm an ISO 9000 certified auditor of auditing process. And back translation is what I do with my MT, right? So I look at this. So they actually do ISO 9000. They do ISO 1000. They do ISO 13485 and ISO 14971. What are those two things about? They're both patent and language services. So what is it? ISO 13485 is medical devices quality management systems. It's the requirements for regulatory purposes. Okay, that's pretty niche. And then the ISO 14971 and the 2019 edition, but they existed before, was medical devices, the application of risk management to medical devices in the translation area. So this is kind of like really specific. This is where they get in the niche stuff. I actually I actually did some medical device translation, sold medical device translation at TransPerfect, and I used this to sell it. Okay, plus my business card that had. I got to pull my cool business card out because I actually do have my business card here. I'll keep talking here as I pull my business card out. Do I have it here? Where's my old business card? I just love having this business card. It's like so cool. I do have it. Yeah, this is the old one, right? So, I got them all, but this was the coolest one of the coolest ones because it actually had, where is it? I'm gonna pull it out here, and where is it? I got so many of these things. Yeah, that's my new SCP one. Cool. Yeah, there it is. So, right. So I had certified auditor, right? Certified auditor, ISO 9000 on my business development director, sales director business card, right? That was my old one. That was a gold mine. Bam. And actually, my job before, two jobs before said I was a certified auditor too. So that kind of always helped. Can't lie in this one, right? So the acquisition. And what they did. The reason why they did this is why it's so niche, and we're talking about they take the language service and they build it in to like services that are making it to helping people doing things and just talk about translation. They build in something else, right? Medical devices. This is kind of really important. Saves people's lives, right? Little heart stents that go in your heart. They keep you alive after you get surgery. After they kind of fix the do like open heart surgery, right? So these kinds of things that do this. Saving people's lives makes a big difference, right? So that's why it's important. So what they did is they took the SAE, Society for Automotive Engineering, J2450 evaluation criteria, and they applied it to medical device translation. And then they took that and they applied it to SOX financial industry, SOX. And so they actually did a couple of different variations of this thing. But actually, the J2450 was used by General Motors and a bunch of those automotive translation agents to do evaluation of language content. Okay. And Kurt Godin gave a whole bunch of talks about this in 1999, 1998, 1999. Rick Wood talked about these. Rick Wood was actually the president of the council, right? So back in 1999, 2000. So I know all these guys. And I actually studied out the 2450 and actually talked to Kurt a lot about trying to use it. So and this is way before I went to TransPerfect. So because I was doing quality assessment stuff. So basically what they've done is they kind of validated. They have a whole validated audit and review this technology, what they're doing is they kind of built it into a whole process, so you can actually do the audits and do the back translations, and it's all patented stuff, right? So that's that's niche. Okay. So that's that one, right? So also in the life sciences area, another kind of acquisition area, clinical trials, right? Um, and this is kind of interesting because I actually worked on some clinical trial. Um, I brought a really complicated clinical trials, kind of ad hoc, mom and pop shop. Not quite mom and pop, but kind of just about that small. Um, Not a big company, but it was really complex ad hoc stuff of the whole processes. I brought it to our Alchemy Catalyst folks, and they were just kind of like we were nerding over this one in the hotel room or hotel lobby at one of the sales conferences, TransPerfect, trying to figure this one out. Right? How are we doing this? The Alchemy Catalyst folks said, Jeff, you bring the coolest stuff to us, right? So but that's the kind of stuff that gets kind of complex to do and it costs a lot of money to do in the end, right? But what they did was ask, you got to know that Catherine Canales worked at TransPerfect from 2004 to 2010, and she actually had done some clinical trial work before she came to TransPerfect. Then she was a regional director, and she left, and she's been doing clinical trials companies ever since. So she was in that area. That was kind of her thing. And so when I was going to be pitching the stuff to clinical trials, I was talking to her, right, when I was there. But then what happened is after they had an acquisition called the LMK Clinical Research Consulting as a leader in the trial master file TMF document managed services and solutions for the life sciences industry. So it's called Clinical Trials Trial Interactive. That's the solution. Cool brand name, right? Um, so yeah, what they do is clinical trials, like a whole pharmaceutical area, right? Medical, pharmaceutical. Pretty important for like, hey, when they got to do COVID tests, they got to go through clinical trials, right? Because hey, this is like big stuff. So yeah, this is yeah, they know how to just find the right niche thing and then just expand it out, right? Um, Now, TransPerfect has a legal solutions division too, right? So, um, they actually do patent translation and foreign filing. What does that mean? Well, I write patents, okay? That's what I do at SAP. One of the things I do. And I'm in France, and we have one in Germany, but we file for the U.S. as well. So we file for potentially multiple patents, right, at different levels. So what are they doing? TransPerfect is it just helps companies not helping us because we got a whole system. It's all kind of so we're just an industrial, boom, 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 or IBM is like does this all the time. But for small companies that just don't have a whole system set up for this, how do you go through into the whole, patent translation filing process, right? So because it's kind of expensive and complex and it costs a lot of money. And I actually worked for a company called Mycom where we kind of lost the patent. I had to bring it back with the lawyer, so I kind of did this, right? So I just got forgotten, and so I had to get it. I just brought it back. That was my mission impossible for a couple months. And then the whole thing, what they also do is they work on information governance and security and compliance. What does that mean? Information governance, security, and compliance. Well, I kind of would do this at SAP too, right? It's the ISO 27001. 27001 is an international standard on how to manage information security, GDPR, data privacy and protection, all these fancy words that are thrown away or they're thrown all over the place, right? That's what it's about. This is, all companies have to go through this because all companies in Europe have to go through May 2018, GDPR, right? So what they've got is they've got an information security support solution, right? And they call it TransPerfect Introspec. It's a GRC management platform. What's GRC? Global Risk Management. So, compliance. Doesn't that sound fun? I hate using new words, but actually they are. Data governance. Doesn't that sound cool? Sounds pretty boring, right? The Europeans like it, and the Germans love this even more. They're into governance. There are two kinds of people that are into governance. 3 government people, IT security people and Germans and the Anglican Church. The Anglican Church uses the word governance. Okay, they're into this. Yeah, no one else does. Um, so all this global risk and security, global risk and compliance stuff, and doing analysis and risk management. I'm not going to go all the things. There are grids and stuff to explain all this. I'll do another video on this one. All right. So explain how I integrate it into like doing software testing. So they do information and security assessments, right, and audits, and hey, hey, guess what they do? They do continuity, business continuity planning. I worked in business continuity at MyCom and IT continuity and recovery planning. What happens when you got a disaster? Do you have the whole thing backed up somewhere else that's offsite in case everything kind of floods over and you have a big fire and you have the stuff to do it? I was actually doing business continuity back at Carnegie Mellon University because I was backing up all my disks of all my speech data and taking them home on CDs. I was taking home everything, so I had a copy at home and I had a copy at the office. It's called business continuity. You lose all your data, you're screwed. Okay, so this is data you can't. That took 2 years to put in place. You make sure that it's all saved in some multiple places, right? And not in the same place, not the same server. Okay. So that's what they do. They have a whole legal service division. They have a whole bunch of stuff. I'm not going to go into all the different areas they do because I have a whole bunch of them. You got to go up the website and look up the TransPerfect Legal Services, TLS, right? So they have a brand. I have actually a logo for that. Hey, they're really good at this, but they're really good at doing exactly what you're talking about. Doing the niche areas, expanding it out, growing it out, finding the things, and not just buying language content things, but taking the language and applying it to other things, and then where it's going to it meets other needs, right? So, um, and then there was talk about using AI for generating content. I think Sarah, you brought this up. Uh, not just translation. This is called natural language generation, NLG. We actually had a guy come talk about this at SAP in 2016, 2017, 2018. I can't remember. Somewhere from the language content thing. This is exactly what we do. What you try to do is you kind of automate the generation content based on what you've already got and stuff. We can talk about automatic summarization. We can talk about we were doing that back in the year 2000 and stuff. Lots of information summarization kind of things, doing abstracts and summaries off of the content, and then re-author. I mean, the whole thing of authoring memory. I'm kind of the author of that thing, right? The authoring memory. I got 2 videos just on that topic, right? Because that was my baby. So these are a couple things, and then the deal interactive. I can't figure out where they got the deal. They actually do a lot of process auditing too. So for like R&D stuff and all that. And then they had a mergers and acquisitions tool called Deal Interactive, but I'm not sure where that fits in anymore because I can't find it. But that was the thing to be able to do due diligence for mergers and acquisitions. They actually, in their legal service, they have a thing like that, has a whole scanning process. I can't remember. I think the e-discover. I can't remember which one it is. You got to go through and walk through things. And what it does is it allows them to be able to do the whole thing of doing legal stuff of where you're doing your scanning documents, right? Taking people's documents, scanning it. That becomes their file or their dossier. And then that's what you have to do to track the whole litigation process, right? So they just applied, but they actually had another one called mergers and acquisitions called Deal Interactive, right? So back when I was selling it. So I mean, these are all just examples of how TransPerfect has really been doing a great job of just figuring out how to meet needs, right? And that's just, I hit the tip of the iceberg right here. I haven't, and I talked about the other ones in the past one, right? So I talked a bunch of, and then get into the subtitling and the dubbing and stuff. They bought a whole bunch of studios. They just bought a whole bunch of companies that are doing this, right? So, probably 3 or 4 of them, just on that. And I'm not going to get into, I did start going through the whole list of the rest of them on the TransPerfect family. I mean, there are a few more they've gotten since. it takes time to go through all these, right? So I'm just talking about the ones I know about, right? Or I was able to kind of figure out in a couple minutes. Just walk through the website and say, grab it, look it up, boom, got it. And I understand what these things are because I've worked in a lot of these things. So so I'm not going to touch on all the ones that I might not have worked on. We'll see. But this kind of helps give an idea of how TransPerfect has really done a really good job of doing this. They're really innovative. I'll say innovative, as some of my other colleagues say, because they don't know how to pronounce it. That's okay. Um, but this is, or actually might be a dialect issue too, because I've actually heard innovative from British speakers. Maybe it's as innovative as just American pronunciation. This could be a dialect issue. Oh no, we're getting into linguistics now and dialectology, real linguistics, right? Rather than applied linguistics, is translation. So that's a couple. Those are things kind of helps give it a little bit more background, and hopefully that helps out. So you don't have to try to get Phil on to talk about it because I kind of explained it, right? So and having worked in this thing, right? So and have worked in the field, so and having to sell this stuff, so and a lot of it's about selling it, right? So you got to understand it, sell it, right? Or else you're selling. You don't know you're selling. I only sell the stuff I know what I talk about, right? I don't talk about the stuff I don't know, right? But most of the stuff, either I know it already or I get to know it really fast, and then you sell it, right? So, but that was a while back. So hopefully that helps. Let me know, and let me know if you want me to talk about anything else, because there's plenty of other things we can talk about too. But yeah, you don't want me to talk about mission translation. I've talked about that way too much in the past, right? That's not innovative. Right? That's just old hat stuff. Um, Lots of other cool things to talk about. So, sales, right? Sales and strategy and all that kind of stuff, and how to get more customers and sell more pies, and pitching, how to do better pitching, how to do pitching. I love doing that. I love doing that. So, but I'm not doing that here because I'm just kind of doing a summary of other things. I'm not giving my pitching stuff. I did a whole video on the video series on doing pitches, right? So all right. So that should cover this one. That's another video done off my checklist. I wanted to kind of get done.